Alright, we're live. Could you shorten this up a bit?
Entirely too small.
Hi, everybody.
And he's here, print.
Start like them? Give me that smile.
Smile. Look, I got a little secretary over here now, too.
Hold on to that. Turn that mic down.
Thank you, brother.
They took all the good stuff away from you.
Is that?
How much you doing?
About 26 now.
They took all the good stuff away from you.
Yeah, don't have a heart attack.
It's overrated.
It's overrated.
Sucks to find out everything.
See, that's the only way I lose it. Now, when I go to that last one, it's not good.
Glad you're good, man.
Thank you.
How's your trip, Ricky?
Good.
Like it?
Yeah, we had fun.
Oh, that's right. You went down to see football.
Yeah. I had a couple beers and I was nervous first.
Hey, Chrissy.
Right? How are you, bud? Good. Good to see you. Hi.
I guess we're in the year. Okay, I'd like to call this caucus meeting to order. In the beginning of the meeting, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence for former councilman Tony Fowler, passed away recently. Dallas Master Committee to convene so we can add this piece of legislation to our agenda.
Call this Finance and Legislation meeting to order. Mr. Burnside?
Here.
Mr. Carselli?
Here.
We got one piece of legislation. Resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Struthers to allow KO Consulting LLC on behalf of the city to file an application and complete all necessary corresponding paperwork to the Appalachian Regional Commission for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $100,200 for the 21-2022 Struthers Water Pollution Control Equipment and Install Project, and to execute an award agreement with the Appalachian Regional Commission if selected for funding and declaring an emergency. I have a motion to bring it out.
Motion to bring it out.
Second? Okay. If nothing else, I will call for adjournment. Mr. Burnside? Mr. Carselli? Back to you, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Dallas. Now I'm going to ask for a dispensing of the reading of the minutes. The second regular meeting dated Wednesday, October 27th. It's prepared by the clerk. There's 4 pieces of communication. Questions, comments, communications. If none, mayor's report. Mayor Miller.
I'm gonna give my report.
Questions, comments for our mayor.
You know, actually, I have a question on the communications. The letter from Ben Bruno, what is that about? What is, I guess, council supposed to speak on? Anything for that?
Honestly, nothing. It's an administrative thing. However, we can, I know John's here today. We have spent more time than I feel is necessary with a few neighbors on Edison. We spent a couple hours in my office. We had Frank there, we had Guy there, we had Joey there, we were all around the table, we were given a list of maybe 30 different things to take care of. Most, if not all of them, have been taken care of. It got so far as complaints for their family members, neighbors on different streets. It was trash cans across the street. We've rectified everything. Joey has been over there, I've been over there, walked the property in the rain with him. Frank, Tim, and Joey have paid more attention to these issues than I can even explain. They are, we then, after rectifying most of them, we had another meeting with everyone, including John Zamoyda, because there were some language and some legislation that was being taken out of context. So we had John Zamoyda in the next meeting. We explained everything to him. We were there for a few hours. John explained to the neighbors what their next steps would be, because it would be a civil matter. But I do feel we've taken care of it as much as we can as a city. The drains have been turned, everything. All 4 business owners at the top of Young Sunflower Road have done exactly what we asked them to do, even though they did not have to. They've been more than cooperative with us. There's a house that has been vacant for years in between the 2 neighbors, and we've told them multiple times that we cannot just go into someone's house just because they think there may be water damage, or they think that's not we're not allowed to do that.
What did the business owners actually, what did you ask them to comply with?
We asked them, they had some, and I can let Frank can actually answer this, spouts that went to the parking area, the parking lot, that they did turn and put back onto their property. We have more than enough information. Again, even though we did not have to, it's not our place as the city to do. We tried to mediate the situation, tried to rectify as much as we could. And everything else that they talked about was civil. They did not like that answer. And as you see in the letter, they said they don't feel like they need to do that. Well, that is not our responsibility. John talked to them, and because they were taking a lot of the language out of context, they weren't understanding pretty much what we were telling them. So I feel like my office, everybody, we've had so many people at the table and spent so many hours on this. It's got to a point where it's getting ridiculous now that I'm getting letters, I'm getting phone calls. I had someone call me and tell me that there was a semi-truck parked across the street. Instead of calling the police department and reporting it, I got a phone call, he got a phone call, I got a visit here at City Hall when I directed to the correct department. So we've been trying to channel that too, but it's got to a point where there's nothing else we can do. We've done everything we can, and we've went above and beyond.
Okay, I just wanted like a little bit of background in case they come.
Yes, and that's why I have Frank here too, so if there was anything
Okay.
like that, I know they have 3 minutes, but I don't know that we need to pay much attention to it.
Okay.
But
Because,
that is a matter that is between the administration.
yes, not
Council
council.
doesn't really have a dog in the fight.
Well, it was obviously me first, and I had to turn it
Sure.
over to them, and
Yeah.
then
Sure.
they had to do as much as they could, believe me, and they have.
Well, Ricky, you've done exactly what you were supposed to do. People come to us with complaints. We channel those complaints where they should go.
Right.
That was one of those. I mean,
And,
it's,
you know, and they did as much as they could, administration, and it's been a process. I know with that one house on Edison in between them, because there are two relatives that don't want to get along or sell a property.
that's
or
been
fix
going
it,
on for
whatever.
quite a while.
Yeah, so.
And we just recently had them in a court. Joey had them here, talked to both owners. There's really nothing we can do. It's all a
Right.
civil matter, and he is making improvements to the property now. So we can't just go into someone's house.
Right, I understand that.
And-
They feel that there's mold in the house, there has to be mold in the house, we feel you should go in and look at it. We cannot break
You're not allowed
into a
to do-
house.
You're not allowed to do that anyway.
No.
You can't go into private residence.
No.
And just another piece of information you might want to know, on the letter, there's flooding problems and things that they're talking about.
Yeah.
They don't there's no water in their basements. The flooding that
Is
they
this for
don't
the
like
flooding issue?
from the major storm that we had,
Okay.
everyone in the city had rain.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it's just coming through their yards.
They
So it's
live
not-
they live in the swell on Edison, so
So all these downspouts are tied into the curb then, all the way out
Where?
up there?
On Youngstown Road?
Yeah,
They're going to their own
complaining.
property.
They're what?
They're on their own property.
They're dumping, I guess, is what you would say, correct, onto their own property and not onto.
Did the cigarette store take care of that one drain coming down?
Yes,
that goes?
they did.
They put it out the front then?
No, they put it onto their own property. So instead of it coming through the bottom, it's
Mhm.
now coming onto their own property.
Very good.
Joey.
All three of those businesses were in compliance. Obviously, I know what you guys are talking about. Cigarettes for Less, they capped their thing, so nothing's running off their property. They gotta go in the other direction towards, back into their property. Tangier, Danny Sullivan was fantastic. He capped his runs straight to Geneva. And C-Max capped all their stuff and they've got their stuff running towards Youngstown, Poland. And he has a rental house right next to C-Max. He replaced all new gutters on that as well.
That's awesome. Thank you guys very much. Take care of that.
Thank them, like they were all three of them businesses were super compliant, they were
I will
understanding.
go.
and
I go with Struthers.
If you run into them, they were super
Gonna
compliant.
spend a couple bucks.
Yeah, a couple bucks. No more cigars.
Very good. Any other comments under communications or for the mayor? Report standing committees.
Finance and Legislation for Wednesday, November 17th, 6 o'clock, unless somebody else is having a meeting.
I was gonna call one for
Why don't you go
police
first?
and fire for the same day, 6 o'clock.
Why don't you call 6? I'll
Okay.
go to follow police and fire. That way, in case there's pending legislation, it can be brought up in my meeting.
And also, not that day, but Tom Bellish will come and talk with us about the gas again, and that's gonna be December 1st. And it'll be at just a committee meeting.
Okay.
Mike, am I allowed to call attention to one of the other pieces of communication?
Sure, go ahead.
The letter dated to council that I submitted. I'm sure most of you have already looked over. This is something that we spoke about in executive session at length. I'm following the processes that council put in place for when these things happen. My secretary got a phone call at 9:30 at night from Councilman Carselli. I've come to you before, I'm asking again
When was that?
for something to be done.
When was that?
You called my secretary at 9:30 last night.
Last night?
Last night, yes. And I have the voicemail from another employee,
Mm-hmm.
from another situation that we had. I don't know what else to do, and I'm asking council to please do something about it. I have employees coming to me telling me they keep receiving phone calls. So this is what we're gonna continue to do is continue to write letters to council addressing these issues. We have a demolition company that also will be addressing a letter to council, to the entire body, respectfully, because we've had issues at some of our demolition sites as well.
What are you asking of council?
To do something, to put some kind of stipulations in place, some kind of reprimand, because I've very respectfully brought a lot of these issues to executive session. And this was the process I was told to follow, was to write a letter.
I guess my question is, would council as a whole have to do something, or would it be
Yes.
directed as a president?
Council as a whole.
Before this is me talking out loud, and we've talked about this before, and I made some recommendations. I think what we need to do as council, we need to have a code of ethic policy or some policy to recommend what is our duty as a legislative body to guide us on how to handle a problem. You know, we talked before about putting the forms out, how to handle the forms when you get a complaint. It was talked about before that when there's certain things that council can do, there's certain things the administration do, and I made some recommendations as to follow it. So now, you know, it seems like we need to take another step farther, because we need to put a policy in place on what our responsibilities to do and what to do. Does anybody agree with that or disagree
I
with
just
that?
want to make, I think as a council as a whole, they shouldn't talk to the employees of the department that they're gonna be dealing with to make decisions. They gotta talk to the supervisors, and if, in this past situation, if the supervisor was notified in the first place, they would have known it was already taken care of.
I did call Tim Daly on
And
it.
I didn't
And
tell
it
you
was-
I would take care of it in the morning,
Yes,
and then you called Tom Noble in the morning.
No, at night.
No, I didn't.
It was 5:30 at night.
and the reason why I called Tom Noble for your thing, because I didn't have Benson's phone number.
That's not your
To get it.
position to call Benson either. He's a department head. That comes through the safety service director, who you already called. This is what we're talking about. I keep getting complaints from different employees in the city. This is not the first one.
Well,
There's
who's
things-
the names of these employees? Give me names.
I could play the voicemail for you. I put on there, Tom Noble. It says Tom Noble. This is not something new. This has been something that's been brought up in executive session many times. We have employees who get 10 to 20 phone calls a day
From who?
from you,
Employees?
employees. And I'm not gonna put Joey Rudzik on the spot right now. But if I pull his phone right now, I can guarantee you've called how many times today?
Not gonna do that. I think you just did.
But it's hindering our processes, and it's becoming an issue, because instead of dealing with issues, just like today, when you confronted our safety service director in the hall, we're in the middle of dealing with something and you're demanding to have answers right now.
And he lied straight to my face. Said he didn't know nothing about
We were
it.
in the middle of dealing with
Huh?
it.
You didn't know nothing about
And I
it. You
still-
wasn't out there. That's what I'm telling you.
Here's the other, and that's a whole separate issue, but you were already up there and spoke to the guy that's head of demolition. So why you were talking to our safety service director, questioning him, is not your place. We were in the process of handling it. We had a situation before where we were in the middle of dealing with a situation and you called and called and called and called and then came down and knocked on the door until we answered while we're trying to deal with something.
Knocked on what door?
On the office door. This happened before. We talked about it already.
Alright,
It's getting to a point where it's hindering our processes, our procedures, our daily activity.
I'm going to,
Well, I know one thing. I got a copy of everything right here. Papers were turned in, signed, stamped, and
and that's
everything.
what you need to do, Ronnie.
That's right.
Right, and
That's
it
what
needs
you need
to
to do.
stop there though. Once you turn in the papers, you don't need to call us 20 times every day to follow up on every single issue.
So, Ronnie, let me ask you this, these forms you fill in, do you get a written response back?
No.
So that's another thing what we need to do, Timmy. When a councilman gives one of these back,
Comments? Nothing.
okay. When Eddie used to get one of these back, most of the time, Eddie was given a written response on what was done and returned back to council. We need to do that too, so the councilman knows that his concern that was turned in was handled, whatever. Okay, so, and a date should be put on that form as to what the response is, because if we, as a council person, don't know, we don't know. We don't know how to respond back to the constituents.
Because you do get people that are calling you and they're chirp, 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 chirp,
Right.
chirp,
We
chirp,
need,
chirp.
we need a,
So,
council
you know,
needs a response back.
He's honestly
So-
doing his job on that part of it, but I see where you cross a line.
In
Yes.
both sides, I would say you definitely can't call employees and order them around or ask them things. That is something that the authority to do. However, if you are turning these things in and you're not getting a response,
Call me.
you need,
Council
we do need a
will,
response,
seriously.
because if somebody called and complained, that person, he has to get them an answer.
Right.
You have to award him that, you know what I mean? So he does need something to bring back to that person so that they know he did his job.
Ron, or council as a whole, when you turn these forms in, a date needs to be put on. And when a response is put back on these forms, a date also should be put on it and give back to the councilman. So the councilman can convey back to the constituent, hey, the barking dog issue was turned in the first, it was handled on the second, you know. Council needs a response back.
And even if you are handling it, at least if you convey it to Ronnie, then he won't continue to ask about it, and his constituents know that it was taken care of in the process. Not that you're not taking care of it. That way it's put.
Okay, and that's fine, but we're completely diverting from the whole purpose of this, is the overstepping.
And I just said the same thing. None of us should be telling city employees what to do, how to do it, any of that, because that's not our business. If you have a problem, take it to the safety service director, take it to the mayor, and those are their employees. And let them handle it.
I think also, in fact, John, I think we need to put some kind of policy together on the do's and don'ts for council. Another issue is, was talked with the mayor this week on when someone's off sick, the proper time for them to return. And we don't want the person that's off sick, whether it's for COVID or another environmental issue, whether it's the flu or the cold or any contagious disease they may, if they don't return back sooner than what they should.
I have that being drawn up with Esposito.
Okay, thank
so
you.
we should have that by Friday.
That-
But
that's
again, we're still not focused.
And
I was told in executive session that if this continues to happen, the council would deal with it. And this is how I was told
Okay.
to send it to
Wasn't
council.
it, but wasn't the same exact thing? I mean,
Yes, multiple times, multiple
The crossing
occasions. In
over
fact,
to-
it happened in the street department with Gary Watowich. He called Gary and told him what he needed to do. So I came to you guys and tried to keep this as quiet as I could under executive session and to have somebody deal with it. You tell me what to do and now I'm doing it and you're saying, oh, we gotta come up with procedures? No, he did what you told him not to do.
Yeah, you gotta
And he
understand those,
continues to
Kat,
do
and
it.
I'll just be honest, for years and years and years and years and years, this is how it operated. I know it doesn't now, this is your administration, but all of us would say the same thing. For years and years and years, people called.
So all of you would just call any city employee and
If I had to
direct
ask
them
them a
what
question,
to do?
if I had
to direct them what to do. I'm just
no, but if I mean, absolutely, if not to direct them what to do, but if there's a branch down in the middle of the road, yeah, you call the street department.
The
I mean, you call it.
supervisor. You would talk to the
Correct.
supervisor.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with that 100%. But I mean, that was never an issue in the past. Maybe it's getting abused at this point, and maybe it's getting overstepped as far as actually commanding them on what to do. But I mean, Ricky, you never called Timmy and asked him for something, or you never called. I mean, that's kind of our
But it's
how
never
we
been,
get things
it's never
done.
been an issue, it's never been a situation with anything.
I
I brought
agree.
this to you twice already. And this was what I was told by council to do, is to write a letter next time it happened.
Sure.
And it's continuing to happen. It's not getting any easier, it's getting harder to deal with things as we should.
So I have just a question, what power does council have? Like I'm obviously this has not happened before and I'm not
Council,
familiar with this.
if you want to be honest, council has very little power over.
Reprimanding?
Yeah, most of this. I mean, unless it is a
We
big
have-
act. I
We
mean,
have no written guidelines in place for us to take any kind of action on a city council person.
So let's get some guidelines in place.
John, I mean,
John, is that
truthfully,
something you
what
can help us with?
I don't know what we're
It's asking for
looking to do here. You know what I
recommendation,
mean?
so
I don't know what council's power
I
is
believe
to
this situation
do.
happened in the past because it happened to you.
Yeah, I was just
It
gonna say
happened
that
directly
too,
to
the
you,
way,
and
yeah.
council was able to say, this is what you have to deal with, this is
Hang
what
on.
you have to do.
When you're comparing, and I'll just be honest, you're comparing apples to oranges, because this was someone who was a direct employee. Megan was a direct employee of Mike and of us. She wrote a letter stating that she was uncomfortable and felt like she could not be, she asked us to address this because completely uncomfortable. this is different levels here. I get it that he's overstepping and he's asking your employees to do things, and that is not his job whatsoever. But you gotta kinda, if we read the letter, it.
Should I write a letter up and have council review it as a whole, and each council sign it if they agree to it, and forward it to council person in question?
I think that would be the place of the president.
Should we start with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
being a higher up official, Gordon, yes.
Yes, let me come up with a letter. I will pass it by each council member, if you agree with it. If we need to tweak it, whatever, I'm gonna ask John to review it also. And we'll sign off on it and forward it to the councilman. The next thing, we do need a written policy in place, a guideline for us to follow our
And
duties.
I think so, because if you want it a certain way, or you don't want us to do a certain thing, I really don't know either. I mean, I don't know everybody personally, you know, enough. I'd bother Joey, I'd bother Tim. But if I knew somebody on a personal level, I might reach out to them.
But
So
it's
if I'm
different
not
from
allowed to do that, I'd like to know.
But it's different from you calling and reaching out to someone to talk to them and then to telling them what they need to do
Yeah, I would never
based on
demand
their
somebody
duties
to do
of
something.
the city. That's completely two different things.
Let
And
me,
it has not been a problem or an issue with anyone.
And you can call me anytime.
let me write a letter that I think that would fit the situation. And if I need to tweak it,
I still need my question. John, council as a whole right now, what would our recourse be on that?
You have within the Ohio Revised Code to pass legislation on how to govern yourself.
We don't have any in right
You
now,
would
so I'm
have to
saying we
create
would
that
have,
legislation.
right, but what I'm saying
We would
is,
have to put something
here
together.
today, what authority do we have? Well, just the mayor is asking us to do something right now, or.
What would you
What-
suggest
what-
for us as council to do?
No, I'm asking
Some
what,
kind
what
of
we
consequence.
legitimately have the power to do, because I don't think it's very much.
You certainly, the body has the ability to reprimand and discipline its members.
But when you don't have policies in place,
And that's
how
where
are
it
you
gets a little,
defining that?
that's where it gets a little sticky. Now, if you were to say, Ronnie, Councilman Carselli, the next time you call an employee and you demand something, we're going to issue a public reprimand on the floor, or we're gonna fine you $100. You're now put on notice. I think
Sure.
that next time it happens,
So currently, we don't have that. We have no policies in place.
we
So-
don't have any.
Some type of judgment or punishment would be against what? Because we don't have that in place.
I still think that it's tough to formulate something right now without the policy in place.
You want me to send them a letter?
Yeah, thanks.
You want me to fine them?
But I mean, that's I guess what I'm getting at here is.
It's
You know-
really not a joke if it's continuing to happen.
Yeah, no,
But
you know.
even as it has happened in the past with Mr. Patrick, we didn't have much control then. You know, we asked for an apology. We didn't have anything in place at that point to do anything about the situation, correct?
And certainly the policies are going to make it a lot more clear and a lot more defined as far as what you can do and what the consequences are. I think that's part of the problem is that, I think even without the policies, you certainly can still vote to reprimand one of the members of council. I just think that it becomes sort of ambiguous when you don't have those policies as far as what to do. So I think you are kind of limited in what you can do, but again, if one of you were to go out and I don't know, get an OVI or something, do something serious, I don't think there would be anything that would necessarily stop the body as a whole from reprimanding somehow a councilman for conduct unbecoming. So it's just I think it's when you're dealing with this type of a situation, I think that's where the waters get a little muddy. And
Well, I mean, yeah, you're at this point you're an elected city official. The city elected you. So now the rest of your constituents can apply judgment against you?
But I
That's
still think
kinda
if
what
you
I'm
went
just
out on,
saying.
if you went up, and I'm not necessarily saying do anything, but I'm giving an example. I think if you were to go out onto the floor and you were to publicly reprimand one of your members for continuing to do something,
But
that would be fine.
sure, but I mean, what's a reprimand? Ronnie, don't do this anymore. You know, that's the what's a reprimand? We need to put something in
Talking about
place.
consequences.
Yeah, we need to put something in place so that this doesn't happen, and if it does happen, there's consequences. I mean, we're all adults here. Say you're sorry, Ronnie. Is that what we're talking about? A reprimand? I mean, I guess I just don't understand.
So,
We need to put stuff in place so we have concrete to go off of,
right,
and there are consequences. Right now, we're making up consequences.
You could motion to kick it to your finance and legislation committee to create a policy.
Well, sure. I mean,
That's
that's
what you could do today.
council needs to write something in place.
Yeah,
You don't-
But we can't make a policy today. We need
No,
to, I mean, that's just
This is-
something
hang
that,
on.
it takes
This is a
thought to
caucus
go
meeting.
into this.
the people who are allowed to speak at this
Could I be
meeting are at this
dismissed
table.
then?
Kristen,
Right.
That is.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because I don't have any skin in the game at this point in time.
Oh, you can leave it.
Well, yeah, like
Yeah.
you don't need to have any questions from me.
no,
You're good on my piece?
No, you're good.
Thank you.
so John, I just mentioned earlier to write a letter and if council agrees to it, to sign off on it, would that be appropriate step to put council member on notice as to, don't do this behavior, do it
For now.
for now. That's a temporary type thing. Council agree to do that? We want to do that?
I'm sorry, Mike, can you repeat that?
I says that I had said earlier about putting a letter together, stating what has happened and put them on notice that, don't do it again. If council agrees to it, they sign off and forward to council.
Sure.
Okay, agree with that, Rick? We all agree with that? Okay, so I'm gonna form something together, I'm gonna have John review it. John okays it, I'm gonna ask each council member to sign off on it. We'll put it, communications on file, and we'll forward it, and we'll start there. And then in the meantime, we're gonna need to form a policy together, because we don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. I might, we might have another situation, different circumstances, we have no guidelines to go.
Yeah.
And we need some.
But we, as council as whole, have to let administration do their job too.
Right, and
So
that's
we
gonna
have to
be,
call them, let them do their jobs. We shouldn't have nothing to do but legislate our
right, and that's what,
let them do their job.
right, and that's what I'm gonna say in this letter. And if you agree on it, if council sees a place in the letter to tweak it, we'll tweak it. If you agree, all council members are gonna sign off on it, and we're gonna start with that. In the meantime, we need to come up with a policy, code of conduct, whatever you wanna call it, okay? If we agree upon all that, we'll start with that.
And I know the sunshine law too, does that come, like, I did that course and stuff too, like even maybe, I know last year we kind of tried, but maybe us as a whole should kind of sit down and really, we should do that. So we know, like, more than, I know you've been
I
on
think
the
there's
block a
more-
lot of times,
I've
but,
done that too, though.
yeah, I mean, I did it online, but like, I think if we had somebody or we did it together or did
If
whatever.
we're putting procedures and things like that in place here, there's more than just this. There's more than just this issue. There is.
Let's start
Correct.
with the letter, and then in the meantime, we'll work on a policy manual and code of conduct, whatever you call it. Okay? So we got police and fire at 6, finance to follow for the 7th. That's correct, the first. So, first
17.
17th, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're good with that, committees? Okay. Mayor's gonna read a report on the floor. Okay, we got the one piece of legislation. Questions or comments on the legislation? Unfinished business. New business.
I have just a couple quick things.
Under new business?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
If council would please reserve December 21st for our holiday Our Christmas, we're planning on being at St. Nick's from 5 to 6:30. And then we will be doing the light competition again this year. And we are going to be asking council to participate in a procession, whether it's decorating the cars, so not a full-blown parade, but have the council members follow from house to house to present the winners with their trophies. After that, we would leave right at 6:30. The band will be accompanying us too. We may have some people from the school. So each house, you stop at each house, get out, the band would do a song, present them with an award. So we just want to do some type of little gathering. So if you
Sounds
can
good.
reserve December 21st, it's a Tuesday.
Is there a better way to vote on these things this year?
We're trying to come up with a way to do it on an app. So that people could just pull it up and follow the, we're trying.
Well, I mean, the houses that are in it, are they gonna have like a sign saying that they're in?
Yes, they're gonna have a
Yeah, that
post
was
this
hard
year
last year.
to, like a reflective post to distinguish which ones they are,
By the
because
time
you can't
Christmas
see
gets
the
here, that's
the
right,
houses.
baby.
But we're gonna try to do some
Hopefully.
type of app where it'll take you through the city from house to house, and then you can vote right on your phone. So that's, we're working on it.
We could vote on your phone.
Yes,
That's gonna be December 21st?
yes, December 21st. And
You
if,
brought the legislation.
Yes.
You actually bring it out in both.
I brought this out.
Before you came in, I think.
There you go. But she didn't think you did.
Yeah, we went to financial legislation, Brian.
just
Backseat driving.
in committee meetings next week, I have received a lot of emails from YNDC regarding some research that they have for rating systems for landlords. What Mr. Pompey was talking about, it may be something that we might want to look into. I can copy and send this to everybody so we have it before the committee meeting. But it is a lot of good information here. And we talked about this after we saw the flag. We had a lot of people not like it, and it kind of looked orange and brown. So we had a little mock-up done. This was the flag that we had. We wanted to talk about maybe changing it because of all the, it kind of looks dreary and kind of
I love it.
blah.
But when it's in the air,
But when it's
gray looks
flying,
brown.
it looks brown, and this
This
looks
looks orange.
orange.
Okay. What do you make it white?
so-
Brown's colors.
So we talked about darkening up the red a little bit and using this one instead.
They both look really. That one looks really good too.
So maybe go back to the white. I know we wanted to try to get away from the white, but the gray kind of looks too dreary. We wanted to kind of pop a little bit. So if this is something we can change on the legislation, we would just have to change the color. Everything else would remain the same.
Okay.
But maybe something we can talk about
In committee next
in
week.
committee next week.
That it, Mayor?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other new business? Probably some point in time this month, I'm gonna give each council member a letter asking them to state 2 committees they wish to possibly chair for next term of council. And then also on the letter, I'm gonna ask you to state 3 committees that you may wish to serve on next term of council, because you know you chair one, you serve 2. So I'm gonna ask you to